Let's bring you business news now on the programme. We're going to take you back to what was our top story on the programme, the new stimulus plan unveiled by US President-elect Joe Biden. And Cole Stangler is here from our business desk. Cole.
Hey, Stuart. So a much anticipated proposal then from Joe Biden as we're seeing the recovery weaken in the United States. But the plan is designed to address just that, coming in at a cost of some $1.9 trillion. It's almost as big as the first stimulus plan the U.S. passed last March. Among the key points, another round of direct payments for Americans, this time for $1,400 each. Boost in weekly federal unemployment benefits from $300 to $400. Some $350 billion in aid for state and local governments. Also a hike in the federal minimum wage to $15 an hour, more than double the current rate. It's an expansive and expensive proposal, but Biden said the costs of inaction are even higher. Take a listen.
I know what I just described does not come cheaply, but failure to do so will cost us dearly. The consensus among leading economists is we simply cannot afford not to do what I'm proposing. It's not just that smart fiscal investments, including deficit spending, are more urgent than ever. It's that the return on these investments in jobs, racial equity, will prevent long-term economic damage, and the benefits will far surpass the cost.
Now, many investors were already anticipating a new stimulus plan in the U.S. That's part of why we're seeing a tepid reaction on the markets. Another factor is the political opposition Biden's plan could face, with the Democrats set to work under a razor-thin majority in the Senate. A mixed bag then on the major Asian indexes to close out the week. As you can see there, shares on the Nikkei in Tokyo down around 0.6%. The Kospi in Seoul down even more, around 2%, while the Hang Seng in Hong Kong and the Shanghai Composite both trading just around the flat line.
Now then, shares for the Chinese smartphone giant Xiaomi, which are listed in Hong Kong, have also taken a plunge, haven't they?
That's right, down more than 10% today. That's after the U.S. added the firm to a government blacklist. Under the new order, American investors will be barred from buying stock in the company and will be forced to divest their existing holdings. Several other Chinese tech companies were already on this list that was developed by the Trump administration. A group that includes Huawei, though Xiaomi is one of the biggest to be targeted. The company recently overtook Apple to become the world's third largest smartphone producer.
Now then, meanwhile, here in France, negotiations are ongoing. This is over a very politically sensitive merger.
That's right, Stuart. Canadian firm Couche-Tard in talks to buy French supermarket giant Carrefour. Those talks reportedly set to continue today in Paris. That's despite some strong words from French Finance Minister Bruno Le Maire on Thursday, criticizing a proposed takeover of the iconic French chain. Le Maire said a sale of Carrefour would put the country's food security and sovereignty at risk. Still, that $20 billion offer from Couche-Tard, reportedly looks like it's still on the table.
And we're going to stay here in France for Cole's last story. Businesses are bracing for a tightening in curfew restrictions here, aren't they?
That's right. Starting on Sunday, curfew nationwide starting now at 6 p.m. That is 2 hours earlier than it is in much of the country at the moment. From restaurant owners to clothing vendors and bakers, yet another source of stress. Kaimon Nedelec has the story.
With ever-changing restrictions, businesses in France have had to adapt, like this bar manager who has been selling mulled wine and oysters on the streets for the evening crowd. But the nationwide 6 p.m. curfew will put paid to that.
Couvre-feu à 18h, écoutez, notre mort, j'ai envie de vous dire. Déjà que le 18-20h, c'était un créneau qui nous permettait d'un petit peu survivre, mais là, 18h, ça va être compliqué.
The fashion industry estimates that sales could drop as much as 30% because of the earlier curfew. It's also difficult for bakeries, who rely on an influx of clients buying their evening baguette.
Ça va être très compliqué. Il y a un gros manque à gagner. C'est un très gros créneau horaire pour nous.
As it tightened restrictions, the government increased financial support for struggling businesses, up to €200,000 per month. Help which will be made available for as long as needed, although only firms that lose 70% of their business qualify. The government will also pay the rent of companies with revenues of at least €1 million per month.
Nous allons travailler avec les parlementaires aux meilleures façons de baisser ce seuil de 1 million d'euros qui, je sais, peut être pénalisant pour un certain nombre de petites structures.
The state-sponsored furlough programme has been extended for the worst affected sectors. Businesses who took out state-backed loans won't have to start paying them off until March 2022. The original payback date was this March.
So Stuart, we're seeing there, just as we're saying, the headaches continuing there for the sector. There is some aid coming from the government. There's been a lot of it so far, but That sense of uncertainty we hear a lot about in the business world still continuing to hang over the restaurant sector and really the global economy at large. Sense of uncertainty is still the dominant sense for much of the business world.
I think uncertainty has really been the world for the last year,
Yes.
really, to be honest with you. Thank you very much, Cole Stangler with Business on France 24.